A photo of me right after my chemotherapy was posted online. The caption read, "The simp got cancer. Finally going to die." Right after that, my actress ex-wife called me. I hung up. I thought that would be the end of it and she would stop bothering me. But that very night, she showed up at my bedside with red, swollen eyes. "Lin Young, there's nothing wrong with you, right?" I smiled faintly and said calmly, "It's nothing serious, just late-stage cancer, that's all." My wife is the popular celebrity, Liu Ruyan. We've been secretly married for 8 years. I've been with her, step by step, from being an extra to becoming a star in the spotlight. She's grown from an innocent young girl to a woman who can now face the media with an artful smile. I asked her when we would go public. She said lazily, "Let's wait a bit longer, until we're free from the control of capital." I believed her, but the day never came for us to go public. Instead, I kept hearing rumors of her new boyfriends. At first, she patiently explained. Then she grew irritable. "It's just holding hands and exchanging a look. Can't you, as a grown man, stop being so petty? It was arranged by the company." How would I know why he called me in the middle of the night? Sending him a gift on Valentine's Day, what's wrong with that? Stop being unreasonable, will you? I remember the year before last. She got angry for 3 days because a colleague gave me a hot milk tea. Even though I didn't even accept it, she still wouldn't listen. But now, when it's her turn, holding hands and exchanging flirty glances are just minor matters. Has she ever considered how I feel? Who is it this time? I remember now. That rising star who debuted as the center in a talent show. The popular young actor, Joe K. The entire internet is flooded with promotions for their new drama. Something about eternal love. Gazing sweetly into each other's eyes. Their chemistry is off the charts. The comments are all about being a perfect match, a perfect couple. So well suited. A handsome man and a beautiful woman. Oh my, don't I feel sad? Don't I get jealous? Last year, every time we met, we fought. She said, "If you can't take it, then let's divorce." And then she left. From that moment, we began living apart. She stayed in a hotel. But when I received the diagnosis and saw those words late-stage stomach cancer, the first person I called was Liu Ruyan. I wanted to ask her what to do. After all, we've been together for 22 years, since we were 5. More than just lovers, we're family. We've become a part of each other's very being. But to my surprise, a man's voice answered the phone. Then I heard a woman's playful shout. "Don't move!" What followed was a burst of giggles. My phone slipped from my hand. I blinked. That laughter, it was Liu Ruyan's. She had betrayed me. I lost it that day. I went straight to the hotel, banged on the door like a madman, only to see her open it wrapped in a bath towel. When she saw me, she frowned. "What are you doing here? Who is it?" came Jokei's voice, right after. He walked up behind her, bare-chested, and wrapped his arms around her. "Ryan, who is this?" Liu Ruyan looked at me, her eyes filled with irritation. "My ex-husband. Wow, you really had poor taste before." "Indeed," she agreed casually. Then she raised her eyes to look at me lazily. "Anything else?" I slapped her hard. So I gave up the idea. Now I'm not even hoping to get better. I just wish I had found out sooner. If only I had known earlier. I could have enjoyed more good food, seen the ocean, and lived with fewer regrets. But now, with my mood so down, the office feels like a prison. I was trembling, tears streaming down my face. And once again, I saw Liu Ruyan. Why didn't I realize before that she was as clingy as a plaster? I didn't even want to acknowledge her. So I went straight back to my hospital room. But she followed me in again, proudly showing me her phone as if seeking approval. On Weibo, She had posted everything as if it were my fault, that I was the one who cheated. But she only looked at me with disgust. That my husband is actually a very good woman. It was posted just 10 minutes ago, and it already had over 10,000 comments. Are you crazy? I opened my mouth, stunned. She forced a smile, choking on her words. Lin Yang, I really don't want anything anymore. I'm begging you. Calmly, I looked at her, not even knowing what expression to show. She took a step forward, gently embracing me, her voice trembling. I really messed up. Let me stay with you for your final journey, okay? Her scalding tears fell on my neck, letting me feel a glimpse of her vulnerability again. Stop making a scene. In the past, in front of me. She was always like this. Unstoppable in front of others, but always clinging to me, acting spoiled. It's ironic to think that even now, she would show this side of herself. We used to rely on each other, getting through so much together. But now, let's just get divorced. Even as she holds me, I feel nothing inside. Liu Ruyan, I don't love you anymore. Her body trembled, and with bitterness she said, "It's okay. It's okay. I know. I'll love you enough for both of us." The next day, after posting that message, Liu Ruyan's phone was practically blowing up. But she didn't care at all, not answering a single call. Dressed in just a simple t-shirt and casual pants, she moved directly into the hospital. Every day, morning, noon, and night, she kept making different kinds of soup for me. As if we were back. Liu Ruyan came back in that tiny rented apartment. Only back then it was me doing the cooking. Now it was her trying all sorts of recipes to feed me. At first, I could still manage half a bowl. After all, her cooking was really good. But a few weeks later, I was taking more pills than bites of food. Painkillers, anti-nausea meds, spore oil, diuretics. A single bite of food, she must have just finished some event, would make me throw up for hours. She tirelessly stayed by my side, cleaning up the blood and food I vomited, applying warm compresses, helping me turn over. But even with all those medications, my body continued its irreversible decline toward destruction. Sometimes, I'd suddenly snap out of it, only to realize that there were huge gaps in my memory of the dates. Wearing a bright red gown, 2 or 3 days seemed to vanish without a trace, leaving only a faintly smiling Liu Ruyan, patiently watching over me. When I woke up, she'd ask me what I wanted to do, or if I wanted to go downstairs for a walk. But I had no idea what I'd gone through in those days. It felt like half of my soul had already left my body. Hovering above, and placed a document in front of me, observing with a sorrowful gaze. The stomach pain was becoming more frequent and intense. Painkillers were useless. It felt like a knife was twisting inside my stomach, leaving me unable to live or die in peace. Liu Ruyan once feared I might bite my tongue, so she stuck her hand in my mouth and ended up needing 6 stitches. She laughed, saying it was a keepsake I left for her. She's crazy. Lin Yang. At the same time, I started sleeping longer and longer. Each time I slept, I felt like I wouldn't wake up again. Hey, Liu Ruyan, let's go have hot pot. She looked up, staring at me in disbelief. Let's part ways amicably. Her eyes filled with both despair and sorrow. Young, her voice was so hoarse it was barely audible. I just lay there, silently watching her. It felt like a long time passed before she nodded. Okay, I'll make it for you. Don't make it ugly. I was so happy, but unfortunately, I didn't get to eat it that day either, because I started vomiting blood again. Liu Ruyan just clung to my hand, calling my name over and over. Terrified as if the sky was falling, I couldn't respond. All I could see was darkness in front of me. It hurt so much. I hadn't slept. So much pain. Someone please save me. This time, I was in the ICU for a full week. When I woke up again, all night, and I threw the agreement to her side in fury. The car that looks like an egg. A hint of anger flashed in her charming eyes. Lin Yang, don't go too far. Am I going too far? Who's the one sharing a bed with someone else? Liu Ruyan. I laughed, but my laughter felt bitter in my chest. I started coughing violently. Even a metallic taste began to rise in my throat. You cheated on me. Should I be thanking you? Or gently welcome you back home? Liu Ruyan frowned. Impatience flashed in her eyes. We've long since become people from different worlds, and you know that too, don't you? I'll compensate you financially. You'll live well in the future. I looked at her in disbelief. This woman who spent my childhood and youth with me, who clung to me affectionately outside the Civil Affairs Bureau, and swore she would love only me. Is she really the same woman now staring at me with such disdain? How could just 2 years change her beyond recognition? I still remember last year, when my throat merely felt a bit uncomfortable. She treated it as a big deal, forbidding me from eating anything cold, constantly having warm water ready for me on the table, making soup to clear heat and relieve my cough, and urging me to go to the hospital. Her heart and eyes were filled only with concern for me. But now, even as I cough so hard I can't speak, her eyes are filled only with annoyance. I lowered my head and wiped my mouth. Then, with a fierce motion, I smeared the blood on my shirt. Liu Ruyan, I won't let you get away with this. She calmly looked at me with a trace of contempt. The company is already prepared for PR. Lin Yang, making a scene won't benefit you. In one swift motion, I grabbed the vase beside me and hurled it at her. The vase shattered next to her face. It sliced across her cheek. Get out! She had never seen me this angry before. She pressed her lips together. If you dare to say anything reckless online, I'll cut off the orphanage's sponsorship. I looked at her cold, determined face, my voice hoarse. You're actually using this to threaten me. Liu Ruyan, hasn't the director been good to you? Do you even have a heart left? She lowered her gaze. I've said it before. I want to climb to the very top. Lin Yang, you know how hard it's been for me, don't you? After she finished speaking, she walked away directly. The door slammed shut. I collapsed to the ground, coughing up blood in big gulps. The pain in my stomach was excruciating. Cold sweat covered my whole body. No way! Am I going to die just like this? Lin Yang, let's be together. I want to spend the rest of my life accompanying you. Back then, right after graduation, Liu Ruyan finally moved from being a stand-in to getting a secondary role. She used her savings to buy me a car. It was the first snowfall of the year. She was wearing a long black down coat, her hair slightly curled, standing under the dim streetlight, her expression a bit serious. I knew she was worried about the rich and beautiful senior confessing to me. So cute. I reached out and stroked her face, feeling warmth spread in my heart. Hey, hey! I opened my eyes. Sunlight streamed onto the floor, and there I was, wearing a black shirt, collapsed in the shadowed kitchen, the white marble floor still stained with dried blood, disheveled, withered, shivering all over. Even getting up felt agonizing. Is this what dying feels like? I struggled to stand up, my head spinning intensely. I stuffed to milk, candies into my mouth, but immediately after, I felt dizzy. Even though I hadn't eaten anything, I still couldn't stop vomiting. It felt like even the bile was coming out. My mouth was filled with a bitter taste. It was unbearable. I slowly slumped onto the floor. Looking up, I realized the house was empty. The kitchen didn't even have a single knife left. So, I had been alone for a long time, clinging to memories of the past. Only I remained. Liu Ruyan had long left, walking toward her so-called bright future. Revenge? But what's the point? How much longer do I even have to live? I don't know how long I sat there. The sun began to set, the light finally breaking through the window and falling on me, bringing a hint of warmth. I moved my finger slightly. I got up and called Liu Ruyan. We can get divorced. Give me 50 million. Double the orphanage's monthly funding. There was silence on the other end for a while. Lin Yang, aren't you being a bit too much? I laughed. Tears kept flowing down my face. My tone was calmer than ever as I replied, Liu Ruyan. She came wearing a mask and a hat, dressed in loose clothing. But even so, her aura couldn't be hidden. People were still eyeing her curiously. After all, her advertisements were everywhere in a city now. Even the bus stop signs featured her face. So annoying! After confirming that the money had arrived, I signed the divorce papers. Since she needed to verify her identity, she had no choice but to take off her mask. There was an obvious buzz of conversation around us, but at that moment, I had no idea that this would be posted online, causing a huge stir. After we left the Civil Affairs Bureau, we were like to strangers. She walked away without looking back. Without even looking at me, she quickly got into the nanny van. A pair of long, slender legs stepped in. Probably Joket, I guess. Then, the car door was shut, and it immediately drove away, easily retreating from my life. But clearly, she left such a profound and vivid mark in my life. I watched the car disappear into the distance, whispering softly, Liu Ruyan, never again. Then I lowered my head and looked at the message I had drafted. It contained nearly 10,000 words. All of it was her memories, starting from when I first arrived at the orphanage at age 5 and met her for the first time, to after graduation, when she stood under the streetlight and proposed to me. 9,821 words, summarizing all of our 22 years together. It's even shorter than a thesis paper. Just as I was about to hit publish, I suddenly noticed not far away a plump mother holding her child's hand. They were saying something, laughing happily. It reminded me of Director Chen at the orphanage. She was also a plump, warm woman who smiled kindly. Her voice was especially loud, but she treated all of us kids as her own because she lost her own child when she was young. I still remember when I first came to the orphanage, crying nonstop every day, my eyes swollen terribly from crying. She was so anxious that sores appeared on the corners of her mouth, coaxing me every day, while also preparing meals for all the children, washing clothes, cleaning. She was so busy that her feet barely touched the ground. When I grew up, I once asked her, was it worth it? She didn't have time to think about all that nonsense. She preferred to stay unaffected by negative emotions. Why not cherish the beautiful memories instead? I blinked, my fingers hesitating. If I post it, the media interviews, even obsessed fans might come searching for me everywhere. The orphanage could also be affected by those crazy fans. With only less than 3 months left to live, should I really waste time getting entangled with Liu Ruyan? I don't even want to see her ever again. In my final days, I just want to be alone, to fully experience this world, and then leave quietly. I don't want to have any more connections with her. Instead, I'll make one last visit to the orphanage, see Director Chen and the little ones, listen to Director Chen's loud voice, and the cheerful yet noisy sounds of the kids. Thinking about this, I couldn't help but smile. Warm emotions gradually drowned out the pain associated with Liu Ruyan. It still hurt, but it seemed like it wasn't that big of a deal anymore. If only life could be as it was at the first meeting, that would be nice. I took a deep breath, looked up. The sky was so blue, with white clouds drifting by. Yeah, it's really a beautiful day. I should bring them some cake to enjoy. I clicked delete. At the same time, a weight lifted off my shoulders. It's truly over now. Big brother is here. Yuanzi was the first to spot me and joyfully shouted out. Her round face, so cute and chubby. Then, a group of little ones ran out and surrounded me. I smiled and handed out the cakes to them. They excitedly carried the cakes to the dining table, each one choosing their favorite style. Their eyes filled with happiness. The director saw me. The first thing she did was give me a light smack on the back. Her voice was still as loud as ever. Why are you even skinnier now? You're so thin, what's going on? You don't look manly at all anymore. I looked at her. She appeared both worried and angry. Her hair, at some point, had turned half gray. But last week it wasn't this gray, was it? Or maybe I just didn't notice. At this moment, I really wanted to throw myself into her arms and cry, tell her about all the grievances I've suffered recently, and then curse Liu Ruyan to my heart's content. But in the end, I held back my emotions as much as I could. This is the trendy body type now. Trendy my foot, she muttered angrily. I'm going to make braised beef. And you better eat 2 bowls of rice today. No problem. I sniffed and gave her a bright smile. Ridiculous. The director looked at my expression, complaining, but her eyes couldn't hide the joy within them. As she turned away, she hesitated and then asked, "Something's off about Liu Ruyan. Are you and Liu Ruyan doing okay?" I was stunned for a moment, then remembered that Liu Ruyan's original name was Liu Ruyan. Liu Ruyan was the stage name the company had given her. That was probably 2 years ago now. I realized belatedly that when she changed her name, she began drifting further and further away from being my Liu Ruyan. We're fine. I lowered my gaze. With a faint smile on my lips, she sighed. A mix of disappointment and frustration, but still comforted me. The media online write nonsense all the time. That kid is gentle and obedient. She wouldn't cheat. I thought of that day, seeing her wrapped in a bath towel, with Joe K's arms around her. I clenched my fist tightly, the pain biting into my palm. Yeah, we're both doing just fine. The director gently patted my head. If you can't take it anymore, just get a divorce. Come back and help out here. I laughed. Sure. I smiled and replied. She still seemed a bit worried, but eventually turned around to cook. I watched her back as she tied her apron, and the kids at the table enjoying their cake. My gaze wandered unconsciously from the sandpit at the playground to the swings we used to play on, then slowly over to the giant ginkgo tree. Its leaves had all turned yellow and fallen, but I remember when it was in full bloom. The branches were lush and dense, rustling in the breeze. I still recall the young Liu Ruyan standing beneath that tree, her clear eyes looking straight at me. Lin Yang, you don't have to be so strong, and you don't have to rush to take care of me. In the future, we can rely on each other. Before I knew it, I was sobbing uncontrollably. I covered my face, afraid the director and the kids might see me. I fled in a panic. But this will be the last time I cry for her. For that beautiful, genuine version of her that once existed. Naturally, the biggest reason I ran away is because I can't stomach 2 bowls of braised beef. I can't even finish half a bowl. What a pity! I reminisced about that flavor, the rich aroma of the beef, the tender juiciness with each bite that filled my mouth. It was super tender. Back then, the orphanage didn't have enough funds, so each child only got 5 or 6 pieces at most. But I always gave all my pieces to her. In the end, she would force me to have at least a small bite, and I'd say I didn't like it, so she could eat it all. It's funny. Why am I thinking about her again? Even though I was just reminiscing about the past, but the past is filled with nothing but her. I closed my eyes, forcing those images out of my mind. As I looked at the cemetery in front of me, I wondered, is fate a bit unfair? When others have a breakup, it takes them 2 or 3 years to get over it. But when I have a breakup, good grief, I'm forcefully given less than 3 months to move on. How ridiculous, I muttered to myself. At least the cemetery's location is far enough from the city center, with beautiful mountains and rivers. And the neighbors seem easy to get along with. That lightened my mood a bit. Thinking about this, I couldn't help but laugh. Liu Ruyan always said I had an odd way of thinking, with my mind running wild, but she still relied on me with those trusting eyes. There I go, thinking about her again. How pathetic. I lowered my gaze, stood up, and brushed the grass off my clothes. Turning to the salesperson beside me, I said, "This one will do. It's quite nice." After signing the contract and arranging everything for the future, I headed to the hospital. Who would have thought that Liu Ruyan would suddenly call me and say, "Sorry, what nonsense." I didn't say a word, just hung up and blocked her. In these final days, I want to completely remove her from my life, rip her out of my flesh and blood, leaving no trace behind. In a private room, the nurses and doctors were very attentive. Sometimes I'd even chat with the nurses, talking about the little joys of recent days. I was quite content until today, when suddenly the nurse seemed to be avoiding something in her words and kept glancing at my face. I felt puzzled, thinking about recent events. I picked up my phone and discovered that Weibo had exploded. The headline read, "Liu Ruyan's divorce." Underneath was a segment, "Liu Ruyan got married. Liu Ruyan extorted." Who is Liu Ruyan's husband? Fans abandon Liu Ruyan. Official statement. My fingers hesitated for a moment. Then I clicked into Liu Ruyan's statement. The text written there, in summary, said, "Liu Ruyan and I got married in our early 20s. But later I became vain and extravagant. We were already about to divorce. But when Liu Ruyan became famous, I started leeching off her. Even claiming I had depression, I threatened to commit suicide. In the end, Liu Ruyan couldn't bear my harassment anymore. She asked me what I wanted. I told her to give me 50 million, and I would agree to the divorce. There was even a less than a minute long audio clip attached. "Give me 50 million. Lin Yang, aren't you being too much? I'll give you one day to think it over. 50 million. Otherwise, don't even think about getting a divorce." This edited recording left me feeling both absurd and numb. My brain stopped processing for a moment, because even though we fought every day these past 2 years, even though she cheated on me and I caught her red-handed, I never imagined she would do this to me. What on earth happened these past 2 years? Did the world of fame and fortune captivate her so much that she'd rather throw all the dirt on me? The girl who used to be cold on the outside but warm on the inside, who treated me so well. When did she turn into this greedy, selfish person? Had I never truly known her? The sweet memories of the past intertwined with the despair of the present, leaving me wondering if the world itself was a lie, filled with hypocrisy, deception, and the stark contrast between reality and illusion. I clutched my chest, coughing and vomiting uncontrollably. Blood splattered in tiny droplets across the white bed sheets, completely beyond my control. Until the sheets were entirely soaked in red, I was still laughing. It turns out that when the pain reaches its peak, you really can't stop yourself from laughing. Ha ha ha! Why? Is it so funny? Ha ha ha! The pain in my stomach twisted violently. I kept vomiting blood. My head felt like it was about to explode. The world crumbled. My faith shattered. So this is what that sensation feels like. I collapsed onto the bed, and the world fell into darkness. When I woke up again, it was already the 3rd day. After coming out of the ICU, I grew silent. The doctor hinted that I should take better care of myself, and that things could get better. I looked at him, smiled faintly. "Just tell me how long I have left." He sighed, took off his glasses, and said, "Maybe 1 to 2 months, but try to keep your emotions stable. With good care, it's not impossible. Keep a positive mindset. It'll be fine. I know my own body." After saying that, I smiled at him, then let the nurse help me into a wheelchair, and was pushed back to my room to rest. Exhausted, even breathing felt like a chore. So this is what it feels like when your body starts shutting down. I gazed at the bare branches outside the window thinking, winter is here. At the same time, the phone rang again. Still an unknown number. I hadn't checked my phone for a week. There were over 300 missed calls. I didn't need to guess who they were from, if seeing them used to stir some emotions within me. Now, they only brought irritation. then indifference. I hung up immediately and lay there quietly. In peace, my body felt weak, nauseous. Even breathing was difficult. It turns out that when facing death, even emotions can't hold themselves together. The suffering was so overwhelming that I didn't want anything anymore. Even my hair felt tired. I just wanted to live a good. If only I had gone for hot pot after leaving the orphanage. Spicy and numbing. With beef rolls, ox tripe, lamb slices, fried glutinous rice cakes. I closed my eyes. When I opened them again, I saw Liu Ruyan standing by my bed, her eyes red and swollen. Her gaze was fixated and intense. Lin Yang, you're not sick, are you? I looked at the suppressed look in her eyes and found it amusing. Late-stage cancer. Didn't manage to grab a resurrection armor. Why didn't you tell me? Why? Shouldn't something like this be told to me? Liu Ruyan's voice was hoarse and desperate. The calm, composed persona she built in the entertainment industry, that dignified elegance, had all shattered to pieces. She smashed vases, plates, the TV, even the kettle. She was like a madwoman pushed to the brink, releasing all her pent-up emotions, regret, guilt, or maybe love. I just watched her quietly, feeling no waves of emotion inside. Too noisy. My voice was soft, but it was as if she was suddenly frozen. And then, she slowly and painfully collapsed to the floor, hugging her head and mumbling to herself. What have I done? I'm sorry. Will you forgive me, please? Otherwise, the company will make me pay compensation. I can't afford it. I've lost everything. She lay on the floor like a dog, tears streaming down her face, pitiful and desperate, reminding me of how I looked when I first found out she was cheating. So this is what it feels like. Enough! Get her out of here quickly. The security guards, seeing him pause, finally rushed in together and dragged her away. But Liu Ruyan kept screaming, Lin Yang! I'm sorry. I bothered to look at her. I let the nurse transfer me to another room. I even thought of that line from Meteor Garden. If saying sorry was enough, what would we need the police for? How ridiculous. Even now, I'm still thinking in memes. Seems like things aren't so bad after all. I wondered, how did she even find out I was here? I turned on my phone and searched her name again. I have to admit, having a famous ex can be quite handy. The search results popped up immediately. Liu Ruyan's ex-husband's current condition. I clicked on it and found a picture of me. It was probably taken during one of my chemo sessions in the hospital lobby, captured by someone who then posted it online. In the photo, I looked pale and emaciated, my eyes peacefully closed. The top comment read, "The pathetic simp got cancer? Ha ha ha! I love Zuzu forever." That was enough for me. I angrily threw my phone to the floor. I was trying not to let these emotions get to me, but they still clung to me like a shadow. How irritating. The next morning when I woke up, I saw Liu Ruyan again. She was sitting beside me, her eyes closed, with dark circles under them. What's this supposed to be? She seemed to sense my gaze. When she saw that I was awake, her eyes lit up. Lin Yang, you're awake. Are you hungry? I made some chicken broth for you. I filtered out all the oil with absorbent paper. The doctor said you can have some liquid food. Can I get you a bowl? She said, getting up to serve me. Her movements, so annoying. I just woke up. My vision still blurry. Her figure even appeared with double images. I pressed the nurse call button immediately. Chase her out. Whatever she's doing. I don't know this person. Liu Ruyan's eyes filled with pain, yet she still knelt by my bedside, humbly pleading, Lin Yang, I beg you, can't I just stay with you? I didn't respond. We're already divorced. I looked at her coldly. Or do you think the edited recording wasn't enough? Posting my chemo photos wasn't enough? You want to come here personally to finish me off? No! It's not like that, please. Stop talking. Liu Ruyan hung her head low, her voice hoarse, covering her face in anguish. I let out a mocking laugh. You were so decisive when you stabbed me in the back. Now what's with the act? Get out. Make her leave. I looked at the nurse, repeating my words. The nurse's expression turned awkward. She turned to Liu Ruyan and said, Ms. Liu, your presence here is really not conducive to the patient's recovery. He is already very weak. Ms. Liu, okay, I'll go. Liu Ruyan took a deep breath, wiping her tears on her sleeve. Then she forced a smile and said to me, I'll listen to whatever you say. That sentence suddenly pulled me back to the past. Every time she made me angry, she would hold on to me, lower her voice, and coyly say those words, melting away my resistance. But what's the point now? I stayed silent, watching her stand and prepare to leave. Wait, I called out. She looked back at me in surprise. With cold indifference, I said, Take your soup with you. In that moment, it was as if the stars in her eyes lost all their light. She hesitated, then, with a hurt expression, lowered her head and carried the soup out. I turned my gaze away. Affection that comes too late is indeed cheaper than grass. No, that's an insult to grass. Actually, I had long realized that we were two different people. Back in school, we both studied desperately because reality forced us to work hard. Even a few $100 from scholarships were enough to cover our meals for a few months. But as we started working, we both changed. I went with the flow, landing a job at a big company after graduation. The salary was decent. I was busy, but as long as I had food and a place to stay, I was content. But Liu Ruyan, she craved success, but in that industry, without connections, and refusing to compromise her morals. She could only take minor roles in different productions. Sometimes she was so busy that we wouldn't see each other for half a year. I was the one supporting her financially all that time. But even so, it didn't affect our relationship. I decisively proposed to her. Her heart and eyes were filled with nothing but me, and I felt the same way. Until about 3 years ago, her role was snatched away. At that time, she finally landed a role where her face would be seen. But in one scene, the actress needed to wear a torn dress and lie half submerged in near-freezing water, completely still. The director was quite influential and didn't allow body doubles. With very high expectations for the actor's appearances, she accepted the role. For just a few seconds of screen time, she shot the scene for half an hour. When the scene was finally over, her lips had turned purple, but she was so happy. She called to tell me that the director promised her a supporting female role in his next big production, a major project. She might finally get her big break. But in the end, they didn't cast her because the new actress for the role had an even more powerful backer than the director. This was a common occurrence in the entertainment industry. But after that incident, Liu Ruyan changed her name to Liu Ruyan. She followed everything the company arranged for her. If they wanted her to create a fake relationship for publicity, she did it. If they asked her to attend social events, she went. The Liu Ruyan who once insisted on holding her ground was gone. She fully submitted to the demands of the market. At the same time, the companionship we once had disappeared as she became more famous. It's not that I didn't notice she was getting lost in the pursuit of fame and fortune. I just kept thinking, that pretty young girl, the one I took care of in the orphanage and later protected throughout school, the one whose heart and eyes were filled with me. No matter how much she changed, she was still my little woman, one I should cherish and protect. But reality proved me wrong, and in the worst way possible. I took small bites of the hospital food. It was all liquid, completely tasteless. Forget it. Thinking about her is less satisfying than thinking about food. I crave hot pot spicy skewers, crawfish, crispy pancakes with extra chili, and an ice-cold beer. I blinked. I'm dying anyway. Why bother avoiding anything now? It's already this late in the game. Chemotherapy only made me lose hair, but didn't bring any improvement. Luckily, I didn't go through too many sessions. At least I still look somewhat normal now. Thinking about it, I climbed out of bed, having lived in the north my whole life. I've never seen the sea. I want to visit H City. I've heard the sunrise there is absolutely stunning. Now's the perfect time. I got up, opened the door to leave, but found Liu Ruyan still sitting in the chair. The sound of the door woke her up, and she hurriedly stood up. Her eyes were still bloodshot from lack of sleep. Lin Yang, where are you going? Let me help you. I pushed her hand away and walked on my own. She followed slowly behind me, step by step, matching my pace. So irritating. I turned around. Stop following me. She paused, looking a bit lost. I'm just worried something might happen to you. Can you let me stay with you? I won't listen to the company anymore. I only want to be with you. Stop pretending to be so affectionate. Get lost. Liu Ruyan, you were the one who didn't want me. You were the one who shared a bed with someone else. You were the one who edited recordings, cough, and shifted the blonde to me. Liu Ruyan, if I weren't sick, if you hadn't done all this, could I still be living a normal life? Or should you be thankful that I'm dying soon and won't waste the rest of my time on a scum like you? Her face turned pale. Her lips quivered, but she couldn't say a word. I gasped for breath, taking several seconds to recover. The atmosphere fell into a strange silence. Finally, I was exhausted. I turned away and said calmly, if you truly care about me, then stop showing up in front of me. She lowered her head and didn't follow me anymore. The doctors didn't approve of me leaving the hospital because my heart and lung functions were failing as well. It's such a shame. Even though I really wanted to go, I kept thinking, if I died mid-flight, how dramatic would that be for the passengers and flight attendants? Liu Ruyan was haggard and unrecognizable. Her face was even paler than mine, and her lips were cracked. I had never seen her look so defeated. Even when we were struggling the most, she'd still put cucumber slices on her face to take care of her skin. So ugly. I smiled and she cried, Lin Yang, you woke up. I'm so glad. She buried her face in my neck, her body shaking uncontrollably. Let's have hot pot today. Okay, she asked in a pained voice. Okay, I weakly smiled back. Make it extra spicy with beef tallow. Even just saying those 6 words was exhausting. Okay, I'll get the beef rolls, ox tripe, tofu, everything you like. We'll have it all. All right. I closed my eyes, worn out. In that moment, we both knew that the end of my life was near. I was so tired, but the scent of the broth, I sniffed, slowly opening my eyes. And I saw Sister Chen's face. It felt like I was dreaming. When she saw I was awake, she gently pinched my cheek. Even her usually loud voice had become much gentler. You lazy little thing, sleeping so long. Gradually, I let her help me up, only to realize that I was back at the orphanage. No wonder my sleep felt so uneasy. Turns out I was brought here. It must have been Liu Ruyan's idea again. Come, let's eat. Today, it's all your favorite dishes, Sister Chen said, reaching out to hold my hand. But when she saw my withered fingers, her smile faltered, her expression wavering between a smile and tears. She was desperately holding herself together, but eventually, she couldn't stop her shoulders from trembling, quickly turning away, so I wouldn't see the sadness overflowing in her eyes. I felt heartbroken too. But now, I didn't even have the strength to cry. I'm sorry, Sister Chen, I didn't want to make you sad. She kept her back turned, wiping her tears away, trying to hide them. But when she finally had to face me, her face was soaked with tears. How silly can you be? Why didn't you tell me? I would have come and taken care of you. You shouldn't have gone through this alone. How did you carry this burden by yourself? She lifted her hand as if to give me a playful smack like she used to, but in the end, it landed heavily on her own leg, full of regret. I should have stopped you that last time and asked you properly. I shouldn't have let you go. You even tricked me by saying it was a trend. Look at what's become of you now. Boo-hoo! The director hunched over. Her once half-black hair was now completely white. My heart ached as I hugged her, leaning quietly against her warm back, which smelled faintly of freshly washed clothes, the scent of a mother's embrace. Sister Chen, don't cry. I love you so much. She cried even louder. You little rascal. Saying such things? All right. Let's go eat. I made braised beef and hot pot today. And I even sent Liu Ruyan to buy your favorite cream puffs. You'd better eat at least 2 big bowls of rice for me today. I opened my mouth slightly. Nodded. Okay. She carefully helped me into the wheelchair and pushed me outside. As soon as we stepped out, I noticed that the dining room was decorated with blue and white cloth, making it look like the ocean. The children gathered around the table, chattering and laughing. The hot pot on the table was bubbling away, with ingredients swirling in the bright red spicy broth. It looked so appetizing. The room was filled with steam and lively noise. Everyone I loved was there with me. How wonderful! Liu Ruyan went to buy the cream puffs, but strangely, I caught a glimpse of her as she was at 17. Her features still a bit youthful. She stood not far away, wearing an apron, carrying a plate of meat, and smiling sweetly at me. Finally awake? She said softly, "Come eat." Her tone was so gentle. The coldness in her demeanor had melted away like butter, sweet and heartwarming. But if there really is a next life, I don't want to be with Liu Ruyan again. Having seen her at her best, I never want to see her corrupted by fame and fortune, turning into someone unrecognizable. It's too terrifying. If I get another chance, I just want a simple, ordinary life, filled with the warmth and small joys of everyday moments, where I can be happy because of a sunny day and smile at the sight of wildflowers blooming by the roadside. Lin Yang, Sister Chen suddenly called out to me in panic, kneeling by my side. She called out to me with tears in her eyes, her voice filled with pain and sorrow. I wanted to raise my hand to wipe away her tears, but in the end, I only had the strength to slightly move my fingers. It's true. I'm really tired. Too bad I didn't get to have that hot pot. Strange. Am I dreaming? Why am I seeing Liu Ruoxu standing under that dim streetlight, wearing her long black down coat? What is she doing there? Oh, right. I was proposing to her. I smiled at her, but it felt different this time. I stood up and walked away. Then, the snow stopped. The world plunged into complete darkness. Liu Ruyan's side story. Lin Yang was my light. Even in that small, dark orphanage, he always found happiness. But I didn't. I hated that place. I hated the pity, contempt, and curiosity in people's eyes whenever they heard the words orphanage. I was tired of being passed over for roles, of bowing and scraping, doing the hardest, most exhausting work, only to be humiliated by others. I wanted to stand somewhere high, somewhere bright and dazzling. So, when the opportunity came, I didn't hesitate to leave Lin Yang behind. Reality taught me that emotions are not necessities. The most important thing is profit. So, even though I still loved him, when he became a burden, I let go. I intentionally fought with him, deliberately let Joe Ke get close, and followed the company's plan, editing the recordings, and shifting all the blame onto him. Because I believed he was always so optimistic and kind. He wouldn't destroy me. In high school, there was a boy who always targeted him, but he said, wasting emotions on negativity is pointless. All that hatred and resentment is just a drain on energy. With that time, it's better to spend it with the people you love, doing what you enjoy. So I knew he was a good person. Even now, He hasn't changed. That's why I believed he could hold on. Once I had enough power, I could make it up to him. He would live a great life. We would still have a chance. But who could have known in the end? Those blades would cut right back at me. I frantically called him, but he wouldn't answer. After calling the director, I learned that Lin Yang had gone to the orphanage a few days ago. And after seeing the director, he blocked her as well. My heart sank. A bad feeling grew within me. I started calling him even more desperately. But no matter what, he wouldn't pick up. For 3 whole days, the thought flashed through my mind. Could he have taken his own life? I panicked. I didn't want him to die. I tried to reassure myself. It won't happen. He wouldn't do that. But I couldn't stop myself from going to the police and filing a report. When they asked what my relationship was with him, I hesitated for a moment, then said, "He's my husband." But who would have guessed? The trending news found him first. The photos showed him lying in a hospital bed, eyes closed, looking even thinner than the last time I saw him at the Civil Affairs Bureau. In that moment, I was in a daze for a long time. It felt like the world had come to a standstill. The top comment read, "Why does it say he has cancer? What does that mean? Is it what I think it is? Why didn't he tell me he had cancer?" Countless memories flashed through my mind. I suddenly remembered that day, when he called me, trying to sound fine but with a trembling voice. I couldn't even hear my assistant calling my name anymore. At the same time, the police called me, informing me about his recent purchases, a cemetery plot, donations to the orphanage, hospital bills. It was real. My phone slipped from my hand. The screen shattered into pieces. I ran out without caring about anything else. At that moment, I just wanted to see him. On the way to the hospital, I kept convincing myself, the photos must be fake. It's probably just some unscrupulous media editing them. I even thought, maybe he's doing this to get back at me. He's trying to take revenge on me. That's why he's pulling this stunt. To make me feel guilty. To manipulate public opinion. To completely destroy me. It has to be that. It must be that. But then, I saw him lying in that hospital bed. He looked so fragile, as if he could disappear in the next second. Impossible to hold onto. Still refusing to accept it, I asked, "Lin Yang, you're not really sick, are you?" But all he did was give a faint smile and say, "Late-stage cancer. I'm dying." In that moment, it felt like something snapped in my mind. The shock was so overwhelming I couldn't breathe. My head was filled with thoughts of him. The way he protected me when he first came to the orphanage. The way he gently washed my hair. The way he patiently explained problems to me. The way he stood behind the swing, pushing me. The way he confessed to me under the ginkgo tree. It was all him. My past was all him. How could he leave me behind? What have I done? When I came back to my senses, the room had turned into a complete wreck. I knelt down, begging him, but the security guards dragged me away as I watched him grow further and further away. In that moment, I finally realized just how ridiculous I had been. I started clinging onto him desperately. I began making soups for him like before, preparing meals. But he had already blocked me. I canceled all my schedules, ignoring calls from my assistant and the company one after another. At first, I politely declined, but then I just started hanging up immediately. I just wanted to be with Lin Yang. He was still the same, sometimes joking with the nurses, laughing while comforting the doctors even as they spoke with heavy tones, acting as if nothing was wrong. Who was the one who was sick, really? What have I done? At this moment, I even wished he would hit me, curse me, take revenge on me, humiliate me. But he did nothing. All he had for me was disgust. But that's okay. Even disgust is a sign that he still cares in some way. It's okay. I'll stay by his side. It's okay. Lin Yang mentioned wanting to go somewhere. But I didn't catch it clearly. I only heard him say, "Forget it. I'd rather not leave a shadow in the memories of the passengers and flight attendants." At that moment, I finally remembered why I made that wish back then. To reach higher, to live a better life together with him. But why? Why did I forget? Why did I forget him? The pain and regret tore at my mind like a vice. The dizzying scenes of the world of fame and fortune twisted my heart with anguish. How could I let something like that make me give up someone as wonderful as Lin Yang? When I came back to my senses, I had already posted that statement. I knew I was ruined. The company wouldn't forgive me, and neither would public opinion. All those years of hard work, gone in an instant. But it didn't matter. He would come back. He would forgive me. But in the end, when Lin Yang saw it, he reacted indifferently. He just furrowed his brows, as if he couldn't understand why, after choosing my career, I would still try to turn back. At that moment, I realized that even the disgust in his eyes was gone. My heart sank deeper into despair. He truly, completely stopped caring about me. I was just a stranger to him now. In the days that followed, everything seemed to go back to how it was before. I gave him his medicine every day, made sure he drank water on time, and prepared 3 meals a day. He would still complain about not being able to eat spicy food, about the pain all over his body, but only I knew he would never again act spoiled with me when he felt bad. He showed no interest in anything I did. When he looked at me, his gaze was just calm. He really had moved on. And I, once again, realized how deeply I loved him. But it's okay. Even if he doesn't love me anymore, I will still love him dearly. The contract terminations came in one after another, not just from my partners, but I also had to repay huge breach of contract fees to the company. I sold everything, including the house, but it barely made a dent in the billions I owed. Every time I opened my phone, all I saw were insults directed at me. I was completely done for, with no chance of getting back up again. But that didn't matter anymore. All I cared about was where Lin Yang wanted to fly to. Eventually, the doctor, overwhelmed by my constant pestering, told me he wanted to go to H City to see the ocean. I fell silent. That was the wish I told him when he proposed to me. I said I wanted to have a beach wedding. But after he prepared everything, I turned him down. I slapped myself hard across the face, sitting in the hallway, smoking to full packs of cigarettes. Before finally calling Sister Chen to explain the situation, she cried her heart out on the other end of the line, too exhausted even to curse at me. That's when I realized she was also reaching her limits. Not long after, Lin Yang was back in the ICU. I knew time was running out. I had to hurry, move faster. When I finally got the cream puffs, I even felt lucky, because their matcha puffs are always in high demand, and sometimes sell out by noon. But when I returned to the orphanage and heard the heart-wrenching cries, I knew something was wrong. When I went inside, I saw Lin Yang emaciated and sitting in his wheelchair, covered with a thin blanket, his lips faintly curled into a smile, looking like he had peacefully fallen asleep. But his chest wasn't moving at all. I rushed to his side and realized he was really gone. He didn't even wait for me. But it's okay. I'll still go to him. I know he doesn't want to see me. So I bought a plot in the same cemetery, as far from him as possible. I lay in bed, staring out the window. At some point, it started snowing. The first snow! I thought about the day he proposed to me. It was snowing then too. He was wearing a white down coat, his nose red from the cold. But when he smiled, it was like sunlight was spilling over him, so gentle and warm. I smiled faintly, my mind growing more and more foggy. The pill bottle slipped from my hand. The end.